The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, this is Kashif Kamran and welcome to the troubleshooting session. This is just a journal session where any one of you having any specific query or question, you can just drop your query and you will be responded back so that uh, your concerns regarding the AAA are mitigated. In this troubleshooting session, my crash course students and my regular class student from Tabani School of Accountancy and my December batch students are participating. So I will try to keep the medium of conversation English because there are many online students as well who are part of this troubleshooting session. So if you have any query, you can see the chat box. You can drop your question, you can type your question and put that in the chat box. So I will receive your query and then I will read your question and answer your question with your name, right? So if you have any query, drop your query in the chat box and send that to me. I hope all of you can listen to me, right? Anna, Deepa, and Sojina are the three participants currently who have joined the session at a short notice, and I hope all of you can hear me. You can drop in your message, your queries, any query relating to AAA, which is creating a hindrance in your preparation for March exams. So I would be more than welcome to answer you, right? We have just 1 hour of session. So the early you post your query, the better reply you will be getting. Just a confirmation, all of you can hear me. If I can get your yes and no answers. Okay, I got the first question from Deepa. She's asking, hi sir, there's a question on additional information. Do we answer in the same way as we answer for procedures? Yes, exactly, Deepa. But the only difference between an additional information and a procedure is that though they have the reason, but they start in a different manner. For example, if I can demonstrate that in front of your screen, if you're writing an editable information, because the focus is on the information, so information is a piece of paper, or information is something which is in the which is like a document information, or information is like a piece of paper you're asking from the management. So when you start to write an additional information, you will say, for example, you want an additional information on the grant. So you will say the grant agreement to confirm the conditions associated with the grant, to confirm the conditions associated with grant. Like just an example, right? Now, if you're writing a procedure for the same, suppose you're writing a procedure in the exam paper for a grant, so automatically you will say review the grant agreement. Review the grant agreement to confirm, and you continue. So the reason is for the information, the reason is for the procedure. Even when you write evidence, you give reason in evidence as well. But the way you start information, you start information with information. Grant agreement. Grant agreement is a information, right? But when you say review the grant agreement, it automatically becomes a procedure. I have given you a mnemonic CVRM: case, verb, reason, marks. Yes, exactly. Deepa, you need to mention the document. You start with a document and then you attach a reason to the document, right? Suppose if you say bank statement, then you put a reason after, or you say a lease agreement, you put the reason after. So information is a document, right? You start with a document, but when you put a verb, it becomes a procedure, right? So that's perfectly clear on your part, right? So your query has been resolved, right? Okay, there is another question which is from Sojina. She is asking, hello sir, in which situation in PFI we can give negative assurance or limited assurance? So Gina, PFI is itself a moderate assurance engagement, right? The assurance level of PFI, because PFI is a review of prospective financial information. So any service offered by the auditor, which is a review service. So the ultimate assurance level of a review engagement is moderate, negative, limited. These are all synonyms, right? So when we offer audit, we give reasonable assurance, right? So when we offer a review service, whether it is a review of prospective financial information, so the assurance we will give will be a moderate assurance, which is also known as limited assurance, and which is also known as a negative assurance. So that is a default assurance level for PFI, right? And that is a default assurance level for any review engagement. I hope that's clear, right? Sujina, that was your question basically regarding a prospective financial information. Okay, that's perfect. Any other questions? Keep putting that. Any other query, any other misunderstanding you have about things in AAA, and at this very last moment, you want to have a clarity or you want to seek a clarity so you can keep moving forward. Okay, there is another question from Deepa. She's asking, what are the key things to include in the performance audit? See, there. I hope you've read the article, which is basically the audit of performance information. And there is an article on this, which was highly recommended. And when you read this article on audit of performance information, it do tell you that there is a difference between performance audit and audit of performance information. And performance audit is not part of the AAA syllabus, right? It is the audit of performance information, which is a part of the AAA paper. So if you read the article, the examiner will tell you there is a difference between performance audit and audit of performance information. And then the examiner will say it is the audit of performance information that is part of the AAA syllabus. So please download the article, or if you have the article on audit of performance information, read the article very carefully so that you have an idea. I hope I'm getting your question rightly. Or if your question pertains to the question, the requirement on this topic, then that's something different. Deepa, is your question answered? Are you asking about performance audit? Because that's not in the syllabus, right? It is basically audit of performance information, which is in the syllabus. So can you just rephrase your question if you think you want an answer to something different from this? Okay, that's great. Okay, so fine. You can read the article, right? You can read the article, and that would be perfect. Okay. Uh, any other specific query you have with regards to the AAA? Okay, there's another question coming from Deepa and then Sujina. First, Deepa. So she's asking, are there any other key areas which we should ensure to know for March? Deepa, I've already posted my tips for March. though the tips are with disclaimer, because obviously you cannot expect that you predict a strategic level paper, but still the tips are given. And I have mentioned in tips that the chances of audit risk and risk of material misstatement are higher because business risk came in the December 19 exams, but still you cannot take a chance on it. I've already mentioned the article on data analytics might come because it's overdue now. And I've already mentioned that the other assignments, particularly in other assignments, a review of prospective financial information and audit of performance information are very, very important topics. Then again, the core areas like ethical, professional, and quality control issues is likely evidence. Evidence is likely in reporting. You can expect a critical appraisal, or you can expect a question on going concern. Sounds more likely. So these are some most common areas which I think are likely in this exam, and I've published my tips very clearly on my Facebook page, and I think even in my class group as well. I hope that is the answer to your question, Deepa. Okay, so Gina is asking if there is a shortage of audit staff or a pressure from the client to complete audit by a certain deadline, then it also increases the audit risk, right? Yes, yes, it do, because if there is a pressure, you might be doing things in a rush, and when you do things in a rush, so automatically you might overlook things. It can also increase your detection risk even, right? So the detection risk will automatically rise if you are working in a panic or a rush. This can be a professional issue if you're doing a question on a professional issue. This can even be a quality control issue that you're doing audit in a panic and a rush, which will eventually compromise the quality. And the other way around, this is also a detection risk. I hope that's clear, Sujina. The next question is coming from Deepa. She's asking, in an ethics question, is it always best to suggest safeguard to reduce the risk? Yes, 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 exactly. Whenever you write an ethical issue, it is very good to write an action, whether you write the action with the issue or you write the action at the end of your answer. So you can write all issues first and then write the actions, or you can write the issues and actions together. But that's a very good practice, right, in a question on ethics. Okay, there is another question coming from Sujina. She's asking, sir, I always confused emphasis of a meta paragraph and MURGC paragraph. Could you make it clear a bit? Okay, sure. See, you need to understand the MURGC paragraph is a paragraph which is designed for going concern disclosure only. For going concern disclosure only. It's not for any other disclosures, right? Because it says material uncertainty relating to going concern. So if there is a going concern disclosure, this paragraph has been designed only for a going concern disclosure. So it says, it says that if the company is a going concern and material uncertainty exists, which are disclosed in notes. If that is the case, then the auditor will insert an MURGC para. So it only relates with going concern, right? But if the management has not disclosed it in the notes, then automatically this is something very pervasive, right? And the auditor will issue an adverse opinion. Whereas when you look at the emphasis of a meta paragraph, emphasis of a meta paragraph is given when there is a disclosure correctly given. Disclosure correctly given in the notes, which is material also, not for every disclosure, but which is other than going concern, because the going concern disclosure will go into the MURGC paragraph. So emphasis of a meta paragraph includes all material disclosures minus the going concern, right? So I hope that is clear on your part. So Gina, you asked that question basically. So the MURGC paragraph is only for a going concern disclosure, so it's very narrow. But the emphasis of a matter paragraph can be for any material disclosure given in the notes, correct, but which is not pertaining to going concern. So that's the difference between the MURGC paragraph. It's only a going concern paragraph, whereas an emphasis of a matter paragraph, the matter can be a disclosure, which is a material disclosure and correctly given, which is other than going concern. I hope that answers your question, Sujina. Okay, there is another question from Sajina. She thinks, which situation we can use a breakup basis? Breakup basis is an extreme situation, never has come in exam paper, and has not even been covered by ISA 5. Hello, can all of you hear me? Okay, so I was answering the question of Sujina. She said, which situation we can use a breakup basis. So breakup basis is an extreme situation, right? When the company ceased to trade. When the company ceased to trade, then that is the breakup basis, right? That is the worst case. And that is not an examinable area. That's not even covered in the ISA 570, because a lot of time the student concludes that the company is not a going concern, which is a very wrong conclusion. In the exam, you can only reach that there are material uncertainties relating to the foreseeable future, right? So I hope, Sujina, you are clear on that, right? So breakup basis is an extreme case where the company ceased to trade. Otherwise than that, you don't use that in the exam paper. Okay, there is another question from Deepa. She's asking, does it look good if we mention the ISA number when answering, or doesn't make a difference? Not at all. Examiner says there is no credit, no marks for the name or reference of the ISA or IAS or the IFRS. But if you're writing a spontaneous answer and you have a habit of writing the ISAs or IES, um, does not make any difference, but you're not expecting any marks for it, right? There is no marks for writing it. So even if you're writing it, you can write, you are just writing it because that has become the habit, but you're not getting any marks for writing as per ISA this or as per IFRS this, right? Not at all, not at all. No marks for that. I hope that's clear, Deepa. I hope that's clear, Sujina, your question about the breakup basis, right? Okay, any other participants having questions? A lot of other participants, Shabazz bin Mubarak has joined in, Muhammad Shazad has also joined in, Glendon has joined in, Faraz has joined in. So a lot of other students have joined as well, apart from the previous students, Anna, Deepa, and Sujina. And a lot of questions from Deepa and Sujina already. And I hope I've answered all of your queries, Deepa and Sujina. Okay, if you have any queries, please drop your query in the chat box. There is a chat box in front of your panel. Open the chat box, type your question in the chat box, and send it to me. I will receive your query, I will receive your question, and I will read it with your name and answer it. And that will be good for other students even. So the other students who joined in, I hope you know how to raise a question, right? You will raise a question by typing it and sending it to me, and I will read it and answer it, because this is a troubleshooting session, which is just for your questions and answers. Uh, and the tentative time is till 10:30 maximum. Okay, there is another question from Sajina. She's asking, Sir, could you please explain a bit about the critical appraisal question and also the way to make an answer? Sajina, I've covered that in my webinar, day 5, the March 2020 webinar. And I think I did make that very clear in my webinar day 5, that how you go about the critical appraisal and how you do it. But just for a sake of clarification, um, if I can just find the document to show you again. But please do listen to the day 5 of the webinar, the recent one. I did it. So contains the answer to your query. Okay, right here. This was the article, right? Read the mind of the marker. And on the page, I think page 5 of this article, the examiner has covered the definition of what is a critical appraisal. Right here in front of your screen, you can see that. It says, uh, critically appraise means consider each piece of information and assess whether it is correct or not. So that's the definition, right? Critically appraise means consider each piece of information and assess whether it is right or wrong. And then the examiner says in the column here that the requirement to critically appraise means you need to consider each piece of information and assess whether it is correct. So even if something is correct, you will say yes, it is correct. So that will also give you 1 mark. But even if it is incorrect, then the examiner says you need to describe why and how to amend. So if something is wrong in the report, you will say this is wrong and you will say why it is wrong, and then you will also tell the correction. For example, the basis of opinion is coming first and opinion is coming after. So you will say that you will say that the opinion should come first and the basis of opinion should come after. So writing the basis of opinion first is wrong, because as per the new report, the basis of opinion comes after the opinion paragraph. So if you think something is wrong, then you have to justify why it is wrong, and then you need to tell what should be the correction. But if something is correct, you only justify this is correct. So appraisal is to appreciate the correct things. Appraisal is to criticize the incorrect things, describing why and how to amend it. And again, this is something which has been covered in my webinar day 5, so you can have a better response from there. I hope that makes your query clear, Sujina. Right, you can take a snapshot of the screen, Sujina, and can save it. It will help you when you're writing and formulating the answer. I hope all of you have gone through the article on data analytics. You've read the article on data analytics. You've seen my session on data analytics, um, because that's really important. You cannot rule out the chances of data analytics. It's overdue, but you cannot say it will come definitely in March exams. But the chances are high, and you cannot miss or you cannot regret coming out of the exam hall if the examiner gives you 8 to 10 marks, knowledge marks on data analytics and asking you something about it. Okay, I hope you are all going good on audit risk, risk of material misstatement. You know how to pick up ROM, risk of material misstatement from the case. You know how to pick up the audit risk from the case, which is very important. Evidence, procedures, ethics, ethical issues, professional issues. You need any clarity on the marking scheme. You need any clarity on a question, um, any topic. This is a session just organized for students to help them with the troubleshooting prior to the exam papers, right? So any queries, right? You're more than welcome to ask it. and I hope you know how to ask a query. You need to type it in the chat box and send it to me. Okay, in the meantime, if you don't have a query, let me share something with you of importance. Okay, just before I move on to something, there is a question coming from Saida Mehek. She's asking, sir, analytical procedures are capped to 3. Ratios with comments, we get 3 marks. Exactly. When the examiner says utilize the analytical procedures, the marks are capped up to 3, and you need to show 3 ratios, and you need to comment on the ratio. What comment on the ratio? The risk. If you're finding a current ratio, then you need to comment on the current ratio, that there is a possibility that the current assets could be overstated and the current liabilities could be understated. And if they can be linked to the case, then that's wonderful. But the comment has to be like the comment can be maximum like 2 sentences. The comment should not be more than 2 sentences, right? So your understanding is perfect. I hope you got your answer, Saida Mehek. I just want to share something of importance here for all of you. Uh, just a minute, if I can share that. Okay, I hope you know that in a reporting question, you get a question which has a schedule of misstatements. You must have seen that in the past paper, right? That you get a reporting question where the auditor has given you a schedule of misstatement with all the debits and credits. That is a very common question which comes in reporting. If you can just acknowledge with a yes or no. All of you have seen in the past paper, even in the recent past paper, I think in September 18, question number 2 even, you must have seen a schedule of uncorrected misstatement, which comes in the question number 2 on reporting. Are all of you familiar with that? Schedule of the uncorrected misstatement question, which comes in reporting, question number 2. There is a criticism the examiner is raising on that question, which is right in front of your screen. Firstly, the examiner writes something in green. If you can see the screen, it says green. Candidates were asked how they would address the proposed adjustment with the client management. While many candidates were able to take these uncorrected misstatements and explain the matters which should be discussed with client. Now we know the examiner typically asks you explain the matters you should discuss with management in relation to each of the uncorrected misstatement, and we start to discuss the materiality, we start to discuss the accounting treatments, or we start to discuss the impact on the financial statement of the uncorrected misstatement. or even the impact on the opinion of the uncorrected misstatement. But the examiner says in the red, a significant portion of candidates instead ignored the correct accounting treatment provided to them and criticized the adjustment the audit firm were proposing. How can you criticize the adjustment the audit firm is proposing? If the audit firm is proposing an adjustment, it will be right. If the management is doing something, it will be wrong. So I hope if you've seen a question, schedule of uncorrected misstatement, which comes in question number 2 of reporting, that schedule of uncorrected misstatement is the adjustments proposed by the auditor, and that is right. So whatever the auditor is proposing to the management is the right accounting treatment, because the management has done the mistake and the auditor is proposing the right entry to the management. So you cannot just start to criticize the auditor in that case. So examiner is very concerned that the student even start to criticize the auditor when the auditor was right. Okay, there is a question coming from Faraz Sumro. He's asking, sir, would the matter to be considered remains the same for new client with different level of assurance, that is moderate or reasonable? Matters to be considered remains same for a new client. Faraz, can you just specify matters to be considered in what context? Matters to be considered, because it comes in so many contexts in the AAA paper. Uh, are you asking about, okay, accepting a new client? Accepting a new client, okay, fine. Yes, when you are accepting a new client, the matters are the one we discussed in the class, like the preconditions of the audit, the client integrity, deadline, competence, fees, ethical issues, because and even communication with the previous auditor. So when you are accepting a new client, the matters are broader, because you need to do the client screening, you need to correspond with the previous auditor, you need to see whether preconditions are present, you need to see your competence, you need to see the fees, the deadlines. But I'm just a bit confused in context of why are you asking the moderate or reasonable assurance? Okay, fine, got it. The level of assurance won't affect that, right? Exactly, right. So if you are accepting a new client, if you're accepting a new client, irrespective whether you're accepting a new client for moderate assurance or reasonable assurance, the parameters of new client remains the same. The parameter of new client remains the same. Perfect. I hope that clarifies for us. Okay, I just want to show you another important thing here. I probably marked it and just want to show that because that's of real importance. Okay, if you can see this in front of your screen, this is a criticism from the examiner report from December 18 exams, and this is a criticism for the reporting question, right? And in the reporting question, the question was about going concern. If you have seen the December 18 question, question number 2 of the December 18 exams, it was on going concern. I hope all of you have seen that. There is a criticism pertaining to December 18 question number 2 here. Many Many therefore went to conclude that the opinion would be unmodified, but the going concern disclosure would be made in the auditor report instead of in the notes to the financial statement. If there is a material uncertainty relating to going concern, the disclosure has to be made on the audit report, or the disclosure has to be made in the notes to the financial statement. Whenever there is a material uncertainty relating to going concern, the disclosure should be made where? In the audit report, or the disclosure should be made in the financial statement? If I can get your quick answers to that. In the financial statements, right? So see, the examiner is saying many therefore went on to conclude that the opinion would be unmodified, because obviously the company has disclosed it. So because the company has disclosed it, so many went to conclude that the opinion would be unmodified, but the going concern disclosure would be made in the audit report instead of in the notes to the financial statement. This is not the case, and candidates should ensure they're familiar with reporting requirements in ISA 570 going concern. Some candidates suggested including disclosures in the CAM. How can you disclose the material uncertainty relating to going concern in a CAM? Material uncertainty relating to going concern has a very specific paragraph in the audit report. So if there is a material uncertainty relating to going concern, it can only go into the MURGC paragraph. It cannot go into the CAM paragraph, or many included an emphasis of a matter paragraph. You cannot include the going concern matter in an emphasis of a matter paragraph. You cannot include the going concern matter in a CAM paragraph, because there is a specific paragraph known as MURGC paragraph. So if the going concern disclosure has been made, will you take it into the CAM paragraph? If I can get your yes and no's. If the material uncertainty relating to going concern has been disclosed, will you take it into the CAM paragraph? Yes or no? If material uncertainty relating to going concern has been disclosed by the management, will you take it into the CAM paragraph? Absolutely no, right? You will take it to the emphasis of a matter paragraph. You will take it to the emphasis of a matter paragraph. No, you will take it where? You will take it to the MURGC paragraph. So a lot of times student makes such a mixture of an answer in a reporting question that they try to give everything, that they will say, okay, because there is an MURGC, the auditor will add an MURGC paragraph, auditor will also insert a CAM, and auditor will also include an emphasis, and the opinion will remain unmodified. So you cannot just bring everything together, because reporting is rule based, right? Reporting is rule based, and you need to follow the rules. So I hope everyone is sound on that, right? That you cannot just do mistakes of confusing yourself and confusing the examiner with your answers. Okay, if you have any further questions, please keep raising them down, because the session has been arranged for you, for your queries, for your confusions. If you want to ask anything, you want to raise a query, raise a concern, anything, uh, for the sake of clarity, you can ask it. Already questions have been raised by Saida Mehek, questions have been raised by Deepa, Sujina, questions have been raised by Faraz. I hope the other participants in the session taking it live, if you have any queries, any issue, you can just raise it through so that you get your answers. Okay, let's then do something in this time. Um, okay, let's do some quick Q&A. I'll do the quick Q&A, but at least I expect that you're all on the chat box and type yes and no very quickly, right? All of you can do that, yes and no very quickly. So now, rather than you ask me a question, I'll ask you, right? And you will give me a reply. Okay, my first question, business risk. How many marks you get per business risk in exam? Quickly. 1, 2, 3. 2. Good. Every business risk is worth 2 mark each. Okay. When you're writing a business risk, what should be the focus? Issue? Yes. Issue from the case, and then explain how it will impact what? How it will impact the business objectives. How it will impact the business objective. Then you will get the marks. So the issue and explain how it will impact the business objectives, right? And business objectives are so many, right? Market share, sales, profits, reputation, relationship with the stakeholders. So if there is any customer dissatisfaction, that is also a business risk, right? If the customers are dissatisfied, that is also a business risk, because if the customers are dissatisfied, you are losing your relationship with your customers, and you might even lose your market share. Okay, next question. What about risk of material misstatement? How many marks per risk of material misstatement? 2, 3, or both? Risk of material misstatement. Do we get 2 marks, 3 marks, or are there both situations possible in exam? Can there be a 2 mark ROMM, or can there be a 3 mark ROMM? Right. Let's take an example. Example. The company is listed. How many marks will I get for this? 3 or 2? Definitely 2. The next example. The company purchased a license at a cost of $15 million. 3 marks, 2 marks? 3. Perfect. Okay. So that means 3 marks. You need to do the MTRI. So when you do the MTRI, which is materiality, treatment, risk, impact, right? How many types of impacts are there for risk of material misstatement? Impacts for risk of material misstatement. How many types of impacts are there? 2. 2 types. What 2 types of impacts? Number 1, understated and overstated. And number 2, the financial statements could be materially misstated. Okay, give me some examples. The company does not have an internal audit department. Will you say something under or overstated, or will you say the financial statements could be materially misstated? You will say financial statements could be materially misstated. Okay, take another example. Share based payment expense not recognized. Will you say financial statements are materially misstated, or will you say something under and something overstated? Right, share-based payment expense not recognized. So the expense is understated and the profit is overstated, for example, right? And even the equity or the liability. Okay, so how many types of impacts are there? 2 types, under or over. The next one, disclosure is not made. Disclosure is not given for related party. What will you write? Under or overstatement, or the financial statements could be materially misstated? Yes, the financial statements could be
Materially misstated. So are you all familiar with impacts? There are two types of impacts when you write a ROM answer or an audit risk answer. Understated, overstated, or financials could be materially misstated. Okay, another question. The next question is about audit risk. This is the first time you are performing audit of XYZ company. Will it give rise to the audit risk? Which risk? Yes, perfectly. It will give rise to a detection risk, and the detection risk will be high. Yes, when there is an account balance, Sujina, you will say under and overstated. But when there is no account balance, like the company does not have an internal audit department, there is no account balance. Disclosure is not given, there is no account balance. But when there is an account balance, then every time we say this is understated, that is overstated. But when there is no account balances, then we say financials could be materially misstated. I hope that clarifies, Sujina. Okay, let's do another exercise. Uh, Additional information, procedures, and evidence, all three together. How many marks we get for additional information, procedure, and evidence? 1, 2, 3 per info, per procedure, per evidence. How many marks? Perfect. Good answers. One each. Okay. Do we need to write a reason for information, procedure, and evidence, or can we write information, procedure, and evidence without reason? Should it be with reason or without reasons? There should be with reasons, right? Okay, let's do an exercise. If I need to write additional information, tell me, is it right? It is wrong. Number one, copy of board minutes. Is it right? Is it wrong? No, it's wrong. Why it's wrong? Because when we're writing the information, we should directly write it. We should write it board minutes. We should start from here. We normally don't use the word copy when we're writing additional information. We directly start from board minutes. Information. So what's information? Board minutes. If I say copy of board minutes, what will it become? Procedure or evidence? It will become evidence. Perfect. Take another example. Is it additional information? Lease agreement. Is lease agreement an additional information? Yes. Okay. If I say review the lease agreement, what will it become? Yes, definitely, it will become a procedure. If I say copy of the lease agreement or extract of lease agreement, copy or extract of lease agreement, what will it become? Perfect, it will become evidence. So you need to find the differences, right? When you're focusing on information, you need to focus on information. When you're focusing on a procedure, you need to focus on a procedure. When you're focusing on evidence, you need to focus on evidence. Okay, let's do something much more important. Suppose in an exam paper, there are so many confusions with students on procedures, right? Can there be some common procedures you learn uh, and you survive? Is that of real interest to all of you? Can there be some common procedures you learn and survive? And even though I continue to say CVRM, case verb reason marks, but can there be common sense? Because the problem is, even though the procedures are to be made out of the case study, but if a student does not have a common sense, you do a disastrous answer. Let's take an example. For example, let me do this. and I will be looking forward to your answers. Suppose you're working on fair values in exam paper. Right now, there can be so many common things. I don't have a case in front of me, right? But if, as an auditor, I want to verify the fair value, I will first have some discussions with management on the rationale, on the basis how they determine the fair value. So I can have a discussion for the basis of the fair value, right? I can even see any expert report for fair value. Depends upon the fair value I'm looking at. If that fair value has an expert report, like a fair value of a property, do I need an expert report for a fair value of property? Share prices, do I need an expert report for the fair value of the share prices? Yes or no? Do I need the expert report for the property fair value, or do I need an expert report for the share prices if the company is listed? Do, in which case, if you can give your answers. Right, so fair value of the shares listed on a stock market, do I need an expert report, or I can directly confirm from the stock market? But what about the property fair value? Do I need an expert report? Right, so we have a common sense, right? Number 3, discuss the basis, expert report. Number 3, fair value. You can recalculate the fair value once you know the basis. You can also recalculate it. And because fair value is something subjective, so you can also take a representation letter. So fair value is such a common parameter in the AAA exams. You can just do mind mapping like this. This mind mapping can help you. Then you see the case study. What is happening in the case study? Is there any specific fair value in the case study which needs an expert report, or is there a share price? No, share price don't need an expert report. I can confirm it from the stock market. Right, you discuss the fair value basis with management, right? If the management has estimated the fair value, then the management will tell you the basis of the fair value, right? The underlying basis. Okay, number 2, very common in the AA paper. Not just the fair values come in the AA paper. Something more common comes in the AA paper, which is known as license. Now, license can have so many aspects. The license can be reviewed back to the agreement. You can review the agreement of the license. A lot of things can be confirmed from the agreement. Because you purchase the license, there must be a bank statement for the license. A bank statement. Then for the license, you can also recalculate the amortization expense. You can recalculate the amortization expense for the license. Recalculate the amortization expense for the license. So some things can be done, right, on each and every area. License, okay, agreement, license, a bank statement, license, a recalculation of the amortization expense. So common procedures, right? Take another example. Example as in like share-based payment expense. Now, obviously, firstly, because the company must be giving the share options. So the share options, given by the company, first would have the board minutes, because we need to have an approval of the board for the share-based payments. If the company is giving the share-based payments, share-based payment expense, the board minutes, then you can confirm the vesting periods. You can confirm the vesting period of the share-based payment from the document. The share-based payment approval, the board minutes will confirm the vesting period as well. Share-based payment expense, you can recalculate the expense to ensure it's accurate. So you just need to do this mind mapping at home in your register, write something in the center and start to think, what can I do? Like write impairment in the center and think what you can do on impairment. Okay, impairment, I can review the calculation of impairment. Impairment, okay, I can discuss the basis of the recoverable amount with management. Okay, I can recalculate the impairment. I can take a representation letter on impairment because it's very subjective. The recoverable amount is very subjective. Okay, as I was discussing things with you, there is a question coming from Faraz Sumro. He's asking, sir, for a listed company, can a matter come in emphasis? If yes, can you give example? No. For us, it says the ISA 701 says that CAM has to be given a precedence over emphasis of a matter paragraph in a listed company. If you have seen the ICI report, which I gave you in the classroom, the ICI report has given so many CAM, right? And even most of the CAM given by ICI says as given in the note XYZ of the financial statement. So see, a lot of CAMs are just drawing attention to a disclosure. So that means that even if there is a significant disclosure in a listed company, which is correctly disclosed, then that will also be a key audit matter. So ISA 701 says CAM is to be given precedence over emphasis of a matter paragraph in a listed company. So that is why we tell students that CAM is for a listed company and emphasis is for a non-listed company. So that is the definition you're taking to exam hall, right? I hope that clarifies you for us. Okay, so please start doing these brainstormings of procedures. You can do so many mind mappings of procedures because procedures is such a common phenomena in the AAA paper. Okay, let's do one more thing. Ethical issues, such a issue based area for the AAA student. If in the exam paper I write something like this give rise to self-review threat. Is that a good answer? Or the number 2 is the good answer. This give rise to a self-review threat because sorry, let's first write an issue. For example, you are requested to perform a review of internal controls by your audit client. And you say this give rise to a self-review threat. But there is another student who says this give rise to a self-review threat because the auditor will be reluctant to review the internal controls later in the audit, knowing because the auditor will be reluctant to review the internal controls later in the audit, full stop. Which is better? You are requested to perform a review of the internal control by your audit client, This gives rise to a self-review thread, or this gives rise to a self-review thread because the auditor will be reluctant to review the internal control later in the audit because he has conducted it. Right? Take another example. You are requested to perform a review of internal controls by your audit client, question mark, comment on the ethical issues. And suppose the marks are 4 or 5. How would you gain your marks? You will first tell examiner that I have been requested to perform a review of the internal controls by my client. So number 1, this give rise to a self-review threat, and you justify why. I have justified it above, so I'm not justifying it again. Further, it give rise to self-interest threat because it will generate additional income for the audit firm, right? See, I've given the reason. I'm not giving reason for self-review because I've already given above. Comment on the ethical issue. This will give rise to self-review thread. This will give rise to self-interest thread because without because you're not getting any marks. The next ethical issue is the auditor will assume management responsibility. The auditor will assume management responsibility because internal controls are primarily the responsibility of the management. Because, again, the because are very important. See, self-review thread, because. You cannot have a issue without because you're getting half a mark. Now, when you come to writing actions, you need to think about that I have issues, I have a self-review thread, I have a self-interest thread, I have a management responsibility thread. Can I review the internal controls? Now, when you're writing the action, it says audit client. Now, audit client is a very generic word. Now, suppose it's a listed company. Now, straight away, if it is a listed company, you will say assuming management responsibility is prohibited. Number 2, if internal controls relates to financial reporting, then it will be material to financial statements and a review cannot be performed. But if internal control relates to non-financial reporting, like the journal controls, non-financial reporting, then it's immaterial to financial statements and a review can be performed by having 2 different teams, full stop. And suppose it's a non-listed company, suppose it is a non-listed company, then you will tell it straight away. You say it is permissible to perform review irrespective. It is permissible to perform review, but we should have 2 different teams. And for management responsibility, we should take in writing from management, we should take in writing from management that making policies and implementing controls is their responsibility. We are only performing a review. Full stop. See how I converted the one liner, you are requested to perform a review of internal control, and I converted that one liner into a self review thread, a self interest thread, a management thread. And assuming it's a listed company, see how I wrote the actions. But a lot of time the students are in so panic for an issue that they just wrap it up so quickly. So are you getting the sense of how you track the answer, how you go step by step into the answer? If you have a step by step approach where you identify a threat and justify why, then you identify another threat and why, then you identify another threat and why, then you think, is it a listed company? And you write actions according to a listed company. If it is a non-listed company, then you write actions according to a non-listed company. Okay, few of the last questions. A question from Sujina. She's asking difficulties arising for management and for the auditor with respect to discovering fraud. Okay, you're giving the answer right for a self-review threat. Right, Sujina, it's more of a statement, right, than of a question. If I'm understanding it in the right manner. Okay, just a minute and two left for this troubleshooting to end. I will be doing another session on troubleshooting, most likely after a day on Thursday, where I'll do some more exercises on professional issues, quality control issues. I will be doing some exercises on reporting and some exercises on other areas of the syllabus, right? Because today we just touched upon ethical issues or just a quick exercise on procedures and evidence or a quick exercise on risk marking schemes, right? How many marks you get for ethical issues and actions in exam paper? Marking scheme, 1, 2, 3. How many marks you get for ethical issue? 1 mark for the issue and 1 mark for action. So I'll be doing another troubleshooting session ideally on Thursday, where we focused on other aspects of the syllabus. But more importantly, uh, when you join for the second troubleshooting session, you should have your list of questions ready so that you can raise the question and answers in a more effective manner, because you are studying for your exam, so you must be getting some question marks. So if you can put them on a paper and write, okay, I'll ask them in the troubleshooting session, right? So that would be more appropriate. Okay, there is another question. Why it would be difficult for management and for the auditor with respect to discovering fraud? Yes, that question has come in the past paper, right? Why it would be difficult for management and auditor to discover fraud? For the auditor, it's difficult to discover fraud because auditor works on a sample basis. True. For the auditor, it's difficult to discover fraud because there is that time panic. Second, for the auditor, it's difficult to discover fraud because the auditor looks at the material things. What if the fraud is happening in the immaterial things? So auditor has limitations, right? So do management. When the management implements internal controls, do you believe internal control is a guarantee that fraud will be discovered? Is internal controls a guarantee? No. Internal controls have limitations. Can there be a collusion in the internal controls? Can there be a bypass of internal controls? Can there be a human error in the internal controls? So as students of audit that there are limitations of internal controls. That when there are limitations of internal control, then the management can find it difficult to discover fraud. An auditor have its own limitations, right? So the question is very straightforward. What difficulties will management have and the auditor have in respect to discovering fraud? I hope that's clear, right, Sujina? Because it has come in the past paper, in a very recent past paper. And 2 marks, right? 2 marks per difficulty. Knowledge-based areas. Okay, time to wind up this troubleshooting session 1. I hope it was effective because it was just organized for all of you to participate and raise your questions. The recording of this will be available. I'll put the recording of the troubleshooting session 1 on the crash group and on my TSA regular classes group who have participated today, so that other students who have not participated for time limitations can also listen to the recording. Right. I wish you all very best of luck for your exams, and I will be doing another troubleshooting session, ideally on Thursday, which will be the second and the last one, and I'll cover other aspects into that, and more importantly, would be looking forward to your questions and queries. I hope you're doing your effective preparation for exams. You're reading the examiner reports for criticism, and you're reading the articles, which is very, very important. And much more important is that you're practicing recent papers. Okay, many thanks to all of you who joined live. I hope all of you can hear me. Right, many thanks for all of you who joined live today. It was just an ad hoc session. I thought it would be good to interact with my registered students and just to welcome your queries. And it was good that at a very short notice, a lot of you joined in. And I would be doing another one, most ideally on Thursday, right? Again, best of luck for your exams. Study effectively. If you have any queries, note them down. And Thursday, I'll do the next troubleshooting session, right? So you can ask them in the next troubleshooting question. Most likely, it will be at the same time, like 9 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time, 9 to 10:30, so that most of you can join in, right? Okay, continue your studies. It was nice interacting with all of you, and I'll see you back in the session on Thursday. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz. Have a nice day.